You know those little things people do with money? Maybe you've seen it. A friend who washes and reuses Ziploc bags, or maybe your parents who have a totally decent nest egg but will not buy new shoes until their old ones are literally falling apart. And you might think, they're okay now, so why do they still act like that? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into. Because the one thing nobody tells you about growing up through financial hardship is that it installs a kind of psychological software that runs for the rest of your life.
And really, that's the whole story right there in one sentence. Whether it was a big family crisis or just a childhood full of "we can't afford that," the financial situation might get better, but that mental wiring, it stays put. That feeling of scarcity sticks around long after the actual scarcity is gone.
So does any of this start to ring a bell? Like the habit of stockpiling canned goods, just in case. Or that compulsive need to check your bank balance a few times a day, even when you know nothing has changed? Look, these aren't just random quirks. They're clues. They're like little echoes from a past that is still very, very present.
So why? Why does this happen? Why do these financial behaviors stick around so long after the crisis is over and the bank account has recovered? Well, to answer that, we've got to go deep into how our brains are actually wired to survive.
Yeah, this image really captures it. Think of your brain's threat detection system like a watchtower. When you grow up surrounded by financial insecurity, that system gets calibrated to be on super high alert for any danger. And then, what happens when the crisis is over? Well, it doesn't just power down. It stays on duty, constantly scanning the horizon, because it remembers a time when the floor really did drop out from under you.
All right, so let's get a little more specific about what's happening upstairs, because this isn't just a feeling, right? This is a real documented neurological thing. And here is the absolute key to understanding all of this. Your logical conscious brain might know you're financially stable now, but the part of your brain that was shaped by years of scarcity, it does not make that distinction. To that part of your brain, the threat is always there. Research shows that financial scarcity literally reshapes how your brain works, creating these deep, persistent neural pathways. Part of your brain is still that kid, watching their parents count out coins at the grocery store.
This is such a perfect way to think about it. It's like you've upgraded all the hardware. You've got a better job, more income, a nicer place to live, but you're still running this old piece of software. That scarcity program is always just humming in the background, influencing every single decision you make.
And you know what? Psychologists actually have a name for this. They call it being crisis coded. It's that specific financial wiring that gets installed when you're in pure survival mode. And it's the reason for that constant low-grade anxiety when your bank account dips below some random number you've set in your head. It's the root of that feeling that you can never ever truly have enough.
Okay, but here is where things get really fascinating. Because that same crisis-coded childhood doesn't just create one type of person. It can create two totally opposite financial personalities.
So on one side, you have the hoarder. They saw money disappear and their brain's conclusion was, okay, I have to hold on tighter. They grip every dollar. They track every penny. It is physically painful for them to spend on anything that isn't an absolute essential. But then, on the other side, you get the spender. Same childhood, but their brain reached a completely different conclusion. You know what? Money disappears anyway. Holding on to it is pointless. You might as well use it and enjoy it before it's gone.
A financial therapist named Brad Klontz calls these money scripts. They're these deep, unconscious beliefs we build from our early experiences. And here's the most important thing to get. Neither script is wrong. Both of them are perfectly logical adaptations to the exact same traumatic data.
Now this crisis coding, it doesn't just affect saving and spending. It creates this whole suite of other traits, and some of them end up being financial superpowers, while others come with some pretty serious hidden costs. For starters, there's a profound distrust of institutions. A 2022 FDIC survey found that people who've gone through financial hardship are way more likely to be unbanked or underbanked, even years later. Why? It's memory. They remember when this system failed them. This isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition. It's why they read every single line of a contract, because they've been burned by the fine print that other people just skip over.
And then there's this superpower that can actually become a trap: extreme self-reliance. I mean, they learned how to fix their own car, patch their own clothes, figure everything out themselves, because there was no money to pay someone else to do it. But as an adult, this can turn into what you might call DIY debt. They'll spend 40 hours trying to learn a skill that a professional could do in 4, because the thought of paying for help, it just feels wrong. It feels like a failure.
But here is the superpower that honestly surprises almost everyone. Just take a look at this chart. Study after study consistently finds that lower-income households donate a higher percentage of their money to charity than wealthy households do. People who grew up with less often give more, even when they arguably can't afford to.
And the reason why is just so powerful. It isn't recklessness. It's memory. When you know, really know, what it feels like to have nothing, and you see someone else in that same spot, you give. You give because you remember what it was like when someone helped you, or maybe more painfully, you remember what it was like when no one did.
And all of this, the saving, the distrust, the giving, it all leads to one final huge motivation that drives so many of these financial habits. And it's not just about their own security.
I mean, this image really gets to the heart of it. For so many people who are crisis-coded, the ultimate goal isn't just to get rich. It's this obsessive, burning drive to make sure their kids don't have to start from the same place they did. They know the crushing weight of starting from absolute zero, of inheriting nothing, and they are determined to change that story for their family.
And you see this in the very practical actions they take. Things like buying a life insurance policy as soon as they can, or opening savings accounts for their kids before those kids can even walk, or buying a home, not just as a place to live, but as a foundational asset that they can pass on. The goal is to build a completely different starting line for the people they love.
So when you step back and you look at all these behaviors, the hoarding, the compulsive spending, the distrust, the radical generosity, it's time we start to reframe them. These aren't character flaws. They aren't irrational quirks. They are precise, logical, and highly adapted survival strategies, all written in a language that was shaped by a world that taught them that stability is never, ever guaranteed.
Which really just leaves us with one final question to think about. Take a look at your own financial habits, or maybe those of someone you know. Are they really flaws, or are they survival strategies, telling a much deeper story about the world that created them?